Ben Riggs presents Reading D&D Aloud. Episode 33, Wish in Dungeons & Dragons, with Skip Williams and Eliza Lambert.
Greetings, one and all, to Reading Dungeons and Dragons Aloud. I am apparently controversial historian Ben Riggs. Um, Joining me today are two special guests. First, Eliza Lambert, who we've had on before, teacher, podcaster, actress, woman of the future. Eliza, hi.
Hi.
And we also have joining us a man who, in many ways, needs no introduction, whether he's horizontal or vertical. We have Skip Williams, one of the leads on third edition D&D, and also I just feel like this is really relevant to your resume today. But before the internet, if you had a question about rules, you could write into Dragon Magazine and ask about that rule. And Skip answered those letters for year after year after year after year, from 88 or 89 until after you left Wizards of the Coast. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And wow. So if this isn't an outre question, what was the most remarkable question that you think you had to answer in that time?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to pick out one. The one that immediately comes to answer has to do with catapult to remind you what draconians are.
Yes, we lost you for a second there, so go ahead and remind us of what draconians are.
Draconians are the creatures that are made from corrupted dragon eggs in the Dragonlance saga.
And I take it the question was, what would happen if you loaded them into a catapult?
Yes, precisely. Yeah,
What
because
would happen? Yeah.
dragons, because when you kill those, interesting catastrophic things happen. They explode or turn into piles of acidic goo or whatever.
So
I played that one for laughs. I said you can't catapult the draconian because they're all human size and they're too heavy for catapults. But you can put them in a trebuchet.
so not a catapult, but a trebuchet, and that would be okay.
There you go.
And
Important
then,
distinction.
then they would land and die. Okay. So as you tied them up so they couldn't fly, then you would get some unpleasant effect.
The reason I wanted to have you on, Skip, was because I was playing Shadow Dark a couple months ago, and it was a second level Shadow Dark adventure. And in this second level Shadow Dark adventure, if you put a ruby into a statue's hands, you got a wish spell. And it's a second level adventure. You know, who's going to put the ruby in the statue's hands? One of my players apparently sees the hands and is like, "Oh, I put the ruby in there." And I'm like, "Well, you get a wish spell." And they're I think they were all first, no, they were all second level. They were all second level characters. And suddenly Wish gets dropped into the adventure. And in Shadowdark, the rules for Wish were pretty simple. Like, you make your wish, it happens, as interpreted by the DM. It was like two or three sentences, and the player wished to destroy the dungeon, so the dungeon collapsed, and it was towards the end of the adventure anyway, so it kind of all worked out okay. But that did send me down a rabbit hole of looking at Wish through various editions. And first edition Wish and second edition Wish are pretty close. And each version of Wish says, look at the spell Limited Wish first and go from there. So today I'm going to start us out by reading the second edition Limited Wish, and then the second edition Actual Wish, and hopefully that eventually leads us to third edition Wish. But I'm just going to start reading here, but feel free to either of you speak up at any time. I can't see you while I'm reading, so you might have to actually just jump in. But other than that, that sound good to everybody?
Works for me.
Okay, then here we go. This is Limited Wish from the second edition revised Player's Handbook. Limited Wish, Conjuration, Summoning, Invocation, Evocation, Range, Unlimited, Duration, Special, Area of Effect, Special, Components, Verbal, Casting Time, Special, Saving Throw, Special. The Limited Wish is a very potent but difficult spell. It will fulfill literally, but only partially or for a limited duration, the utterance of the spellcaster. Thus, the actuality of the past, present, or future might be altered, but possibly only for the wizard unless the wording of the spell is most carefully stated, in some limited manner. The use of a limited wish will not substantially change major realities, nor will it bring wealth or experience merely by asking. The spell can, for example, restore some hit points, or all hit points for a limited duration lost by a wizard. It can reduce opponent hit probabilities or damage, increase duration of some magical effect, cause a creature to be favorably disposed to the spellcaster, mimic a spell of 7th level or less, and so on. See the 9th level wish spell. Greedy desires usually end in disaster for the wisher. Casting time is based on the time spent preparing the wording for the spell. Clever players decide what they want to say before using the spell. Normally, the casting time is 1 round, most of it being taken up by deciding what to say. Casting the spell ages the caster 1 year per 100 years of regular lifespan. All right. Anybody want to say anything about that, or should I just jump right to Wish? All right, I shall jump forward
Well,
to Wish.
a
Go
little
ahead.
known fact there is you're supposed to make a System Shack.
Oh, really?
I
This
believe if you dig through the minutia of the game, you discover that magical aging requires System Shack roll.
And
So this is a spell that can kill you.
and I don't suppose you recall the rules for System Shock.
It's based on your constitution, and there's a chance you just die.
So it's really the simulating of Tony Stark grabbing the Infinity Gauntlet and doing one thing, that kind of a thing.
Would be a way, yeah, that would be one way to put it. Yes.
yeah.
Now, do you think that was a decision made because it fit with the D&D game world, or do you think that was more of a, well, this is a really powerful spell, we should put a limit on it?
I mean, I don't recall the exact uh evolution of the spell. I mean, there was an older spell called Alter Reality, which the clerics get it. I can't remember who got Alter Reality, but Alter Reality is essentially Limited Wish with a different name.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just something that you do that lets you pull the strings of fate for everybody for a little while, and I think that's useful in campaign play. We can talk about that a little bit more later,
Well, that's
right?
that's interesting because I had just assumed at some point Gary, but probably Gary, I don't know if it was Gary, but I would assume probably Gary was like, hey, wishes are really cool. It happens all the time in fairy tales and the Arabian Nights that you get some wishes. Let's put him in D&D just because it's going to be cool. And it is indeed very, very cool. But after putting that in there, you also have to be like, well, how does this ruin the game? If you can wish away every problem. And I was assuming that the design history of Wish was going to be Gary puts awesome thing in game, and almost everyone since then is like, well, how do we make this work in a game situation? Like in a story, it's very cool, but it has the possibility of just wrecking everything on one turn. So the idea
Oh
that
yeah.
there was a go ahead, sorry.
I mean, that's the problem with spells like Wish or uh, any number of other spells. Polymorph comes to mind. You want the spells to do what they do in the fairy tales, but you've got to do something to keep people from using them every chance they get. And that's where the problems come in.
Got a monkey's pot. There's got to be a big drawback.
Well, and it's funny you should mention Monkey's Paw because I think that's about to come up here in Wish proper. So let me begin
Oh,
reading it. Unless Skip wanted to say something else.
Nope, not
Okay.
right.
So this is also from the second edition revised player's handbook. Wish. Conjuration Summoning. Range, unlimited, duration, special, area of effect, special, components, verbal, casting time, special, saving throw, special. The wish spell is a more potent version of a limited wish. If it is used to alter reality with respect to damage sustained by a party, to bring a dead creature to life, or to escape from a difficult situation by lifting the spellcaster and his party from one place to another, it will not cause the wizard any disability. Other forms of wish, however, cause the spellcaster to weaken, -3 on strength, and require 2d4 days of bed rest due to the stresses the wish places upon time, space, and his body. Regardless of what is wished for, the exact terminology of the wish spell is likely to be carried out. Casting a wish spell ages the caster 5 years. Discretionary power of the dungeon master is necessary in order to maintain game balance. For example, wishing another creature dead is grossly unfair. The dungeon master might well advance the spellcaster to a future period in which the creature is no longer alive, effectively putting the wishing character out of the campaign. So, and Eliza, it certainly seems like right there is what you're talking about, where the dungeon master is encouraged to just get creative and to not let it destroy the campaign and instead just blow up that character if you have to.
Yeah. There's a trend on TikTok right now where this guy is saying that there's the game Monkey's Paw, where you have to try to create an unpenetrable wish. You've got to think of a wish that would beat Monkey's Paw, and then the other person has to try to find holes within the wish to make it absolutely terrible.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't suppose you happen to know who that is.
Do you want to play Monkey's Paw?
What is that?
It's a game where one person makes a wish and the other person has to add a catch to it to make them regret the wish.
Okay, sure. Why not?
Well, I'm undefeated.
Okay.
I'm not going to go easy on you.
Whatever, man. How do we play?
You wish first.
All right. I wish all pedophiles disappeared.
Oh. Oh, okay.
How you gonna make me regret that one, huh?
I'll grant it.
So is that it? Do I win?
Well, all of the pedos have disappeared.
The easiest game ever. Sorry about that undefeated streak, buddy.
They are now invisible.
Wait, what?
They disappeared.
No. Wait.
From sight.
Come on, man. Let me tell you something.
You've made it so the worst people in the world are now invisible.
Let me tell you something!
Like the now more ironically and aptly named Predator movies. Not exactly what you had in mind, was it?
So, Skip, let me ask you, did you get any intriguing questions having to do with first or second level wish that you can recall when you were the sage?
Nothing beyond the what can a wish do? And most of those I did not put in the column.
Yeah, because it certainly seems like
Just
it.
because-
Go ahead, sorry.
It's too big a can of worms to deal with. The column was not good for deep and complicated questions. I do recall at one point somebody asking about being wished into a glass of water. And I don't remember what rule that was with. And I said, well, so what happens if somebody drinks me? And I said, well, you're dead. It's like if somebody eats you.
Did you ever get the feeling that people were just trolling you sometimes?
No, because there turned out that there was a big thread in a very rudimentary bulletin board at the time about water. Somebody was saying that water, if a human or a living creature drinks water, the water itself is never altered, right? You don't actually digest water. Your body does what it needs to do with it, and then the water exits, so to speak. But that's a little bit rarefied for a fantasy game.
You're saying somebody was actually taking issue with your answer to that idea?
Yes, actually, it was somebody with D&D chops. Let's leave it at
I mean, to me, that sounds like Harold Johnson, but I don't know that to be true. All right. So you were one of the leads on third edition. Um, do you remember tackling Wish for third in the design process?
Yeah, that's what I would call what I like to call one of the blood on the walls moments.
Tell me all about the blood on the wall, Skip.
I don't want to take up too much of their time here. The short version of the story is we all agreed that Wish had to be in the game for some of the reasons we've alluded to here in the conversation already. It's part and parcel of fantasy. But the real question is, what do we gonna let Wish do? Yeah, and a certain someone whose initials are Peter Atkinson said one of the things we can't let it do is change past events. And everybody else went, come again?
Well, and again, we have some younger listeners, so I just want to put in here. So Peter Adkison was one of the co-founders of Wizards of the Coast. He led the purchase of TSR by Wizards of the Coast, and moved a large mass of you guys out to the West Coast. So he's not only on the design team, but he's also your boss.
But yes, and a long time fan of the game. So, he's not somebody whose opinion you were going to be inclined to dismiss lightly in any case. And it turned out that Peter's objection had to do with what was a traumatic event in his campaign where the players screwed up. And Peter said, okay, well, this is going to do all these great things. And there's going to be this continent-wide war, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be epic. And then somebody said, we've got to wish. We're going to wish that never happened. And Peter went, what? I've done all.
You know, this is actually fascinating. So Kyle Brink was the gentleman at Wizards who recently went on kind of the OGL apology tour, where after the OGL scandal, he went around explaining what Wizards did and essentially apologizing for it. And then they put the 5.5th edition SRD into the Creative Commons. And Kyle has been kind enough to speak to me now that he is departed from Wizards of the Coast. And one of the stories that he told me about Chris Cox, the current CEO of Hasbro, who is also a D&D fan of long standing, was that he would come to, D&D meetings and kind of D&D design pitches very much from the point of view of, well, this is what I would like at my table, and this is my personal experience with D&D. Therefore, why don't we kind of do it for everyone? Or, why don't we make products that I just kind of want to see? One of the specific stories I heard was apparently he was really keen on rebooting Dark Sun. Um, and the rest of the team was like, we're not so keen on that. It's just there's a lot of stuff in there that we're not sure how we would translate to the 21st century. And they kind of were cool on that idea. But Chris Cox was, all for it, guns blazing. And it's interesting that and as far as I can think, before Chris Cox, Peter Adkison was the last CEO of Wizards of the Coast to actually have hands-on experience as a dungeon master in charge of the game. So that's actually fascinating. So, okay, so your boss says to you guys, we can't have Wish affect the past. What do you do with that?
We essentially said, okay, it's very important to have that reset game function. I mean, seriously, I'd consider not having it in the game at all if we're going to tell you can't do that. And for that matter, it doesn't make a difference what people tell us, what we tell people, I should say. If we tell people you can't change the past, DMs are going to allow people to change the past because you're going to want, that's the thing people are going to want to do. And he eventually came around. He got to give Peter a lot of props for allowing himself to be persuaded in that regard and many others. But that was the first hurdle to get over.
Wait, this was early in the design process that you guys tackled Wish?
It was fairly early because the the list of iconic spells was on a list of things that had to be in the game. They had a very, very short list of things that had to be in third edition.
What were some other iconic spells that had to be in third edition?
Magic missile, fireball. What else? What are the things that you think of when
I've only played 3.5, fourth, and fifth edition. So I was curious to see if some of my favorite spells were older ones or newer ones, because my personal favorite is Mage Hand. I use that one for a lot. And I don't know if that's a classic or a newer one.
yeah, that's Mage Hand that's currently was level 0 in third. Is your
Yeah, it's like my favorite cantrip. Yeah.
Yeah, Mage Hand is lovely. It's essentially a limited telekinesis, right?
Yeah.
It's a fun spell to have. Yeah, Mage Hand. Yeah, we didn't really consider the 0 level stuff
Yeah.
as must haves,
Mhm.
but certainly Magic Missile and Fireball had to be in there, right? Cure Light Wounds, etc., etc. Just things that were just iconic to the game.
Yeah.
Well,
My
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to tell a story about using the spell Fireball, because my sister is also a DM, and my dad is a late bloomer D&D nerd. We've gotten him in his 50s and 60s to start playing, because he had every other indication that he'd be a D&D nut. Um, and so one time when my sister was home for Christmas, she put together a one shot for our whole family to play. So my dad, myself, my other sister Catherine, and my mom. But we based it off of this radio show from like the 1930s called The Cinnamon Bear, because I grew up watching it or listening to it rather on cassette tapes with my family. We would listen to it from my sister Maddie's birthday to my sister mom's. We would listen to it from my sister Maddie's birthday to my mom's birthday, because Maddie is November 29th. And then my mom is Christmas Eve. So we would listen to one episode every night and it would time out perfectly. But so anyway, so it meant a lot to our family. And so she made a one shot basing it off of the Cinnamon Bear. And we defeated the Wintergreen Witch with Fireball.
So I have to ask, what's the Wintergreen Witch?
She is the ultimate villain in the Cinnamon Bear series, because the whole plot is Jimmy and Judy are looking for the silver star across atop their Christmas tree. It's not Christmas if they can't have the silver star. And they go on this adventure through Maybeland and they meet a bunch of different characters. And one of the characters they meet is called the Crazy Quilt Dragon, who stole it in the first place because he loves shiny stuff. But then the Wintergreen Witch is like the ultimate villain. She's the one who's bad and has no redeeming quality. She's the evil one. And Santa Claus helps you defeat her, because you meet Santa in the end too. And his highest ranking elf, Nikki Fruital.
So, Eliza, let me ask you. You mentioned playing fourth, and again, this question is not a test.
Mhm.
But do you recall Magic Missile from fourth at all?
Like I said when we spoke previously, my one time playing fourth edition was my very first time
Okay.
playing D&D ever,
Yeah,
and
so
I didn't really know how to play.
it's okay.
I did
Again,
not
like I
play a
said,
magic character, so
it
I didn't deal with spells.
it was not a test, but
Yeah,
again, when we
but I
talk
failed.
about well, it's just that when we talk about Magic Missile being one of those things in D&D that makes D&D D&D, in fourth edition, they took it and made it so that you had to roll for Magic Missile. And because again, Magic Missile is an auto hit, right? And when I was doing research on fourth edition, it's amazing how early on people were reacting poorly to having to roll for Magic Missile and being like, but it auto hits. It's supposed to auto hit. This is what it does. And because fourth edition was supposed to be kind of a more tactical combat game, they were like, well, it's a little unbalanced for the wizard to have an auto hit power this early on, so we're going to make you have to roll. But a lot of people bounced off it really hard. The Jason Ballman, who went on to be the lead designer of first edition Pathfinder, posted to his blog about it, and he titled it "Sacred Hamburger." You know, like I said, this sacred cow being ground up and used in fourth edition. Um, All right. Skip, should I read Wish from the 3.0 Player's Handbook?
Go right ahead.
All right. Let's see what sort of compromise you guys worked out. And let me ask, so, when you were working on Wish, this would have been you, Rich Baker, Monty Cook, and Peter Adkison at that point? Is that where it was in the design process?
And we got around to doing Wish for real. Rich had exited and Jonathan Tweet was on the
Okay.
team.
So Jonathan Tweet was there instead of Rich.
You
All
and
right.
John Tweet, essentially.
Okay. So this is the longest version of Wish I have yet seen. It goes on for about 2 full columns in the player's handbook. But again, feel free to interrupt me the moment you're interested in this. So, Wish, Universal. Level, Sorcerer Wizard 9. Components, Verbal and XP. You had to spend XP to use Wish?
Yep. We thought that
Wow.
was a lot. Yeah, we thought that was a lot better than aging you and making you die.
I mean, fair, you're not wrong. Just, an interesting change.
I thought XP. I'm really proud of the XP component idea. I think I think it may be just me, but it is just me. People hate it.
I'm not saying it just jumped out at me as a difference. I'm not critiquing per se, because again, when you put it that way, I'm like, well, I probably would have preferred that. All right. Casting time, 1 action. Range, see text. Target, effector area, see text. Duration, see text. Saving throw, see text. Spell resistance, yes. Wish is the mightiest spell a wizard or sorcerer can cast. By simply speaking aloud, you can alter reality to better suit you. Even Wish, however, has its limits. A wish can do any one of the following, and here we have a column-long list. Duplicate any wizard or sorcerer spell of 8th level or lower, provided the spell is not from a school prohibited to you. Duplicate any other spell of 6th level or lower, provided the spell is not from a school prohibited to you. Duplicate any wizard or sorcerer spell of 7th level or lower, even if it's from a prohibited school. Duplicate any other spell of 5th or lower level, even if it's from a prohibited school. Undo the harmful effects of many other spells, such as Geas/Quest or Insanity. Create a valuable item, even a magic item, of up to 15,000 gold pieces in value. Grant a creature +1 inherent bonus to an ability score. 2 to 5 wish spells cast in immediate succession can grant a creature a +2 to +5 inherent bonus to an ability score. 2 wishes for a +2 inherent bonus, 3 for a +3 inherent bonus, and so on. Inherent bonuses are instantaneous, so they cannot be dispelled. Note: an inherent bonus may not exceed +5 for a single ability score, and inherent bonuses to a particular ability score do not stack, so only the best one applies. Remove injuries and afflictions. A single wish can aid 1 creature per caster. A single wish can aid 1 creature per caster level, and all subjects must be cured of the same type of affliction. For example, you could heal all the damage your party has suffered or remove all the poison effects from the party, but do not do both with the same wish. A wish can never restore the experience point loss from casting a spell or the level or constitution loss from being raised from the dead. Revive the dead. A wish can bring a dead creature back to life by duplicating a resurrection spell. A wish can revive a dead creature whose body has been destroyed, but the feat takes 2 wishes, one to recreate the body and another to infuse the body with life again. A wish cannot prevent a character who was brought back to life from losing an experience level. Transport travelers. A wish can lift 1 creature per caster level from anywhere on any plane and place these creatures anywhere else on any plane regardless of local conditions. An unwilling target gets a will save to negate and SR, which I assume is spell resistance. Undo misfortune. A wish can undo a single recent event. The wish forces a re-roll of any roll made within the last round, including your last turn. Reality reshapes itself to accommodate the new result. For example, the wish could undo an opponent's successful save, a foe's successful critical hit, either the attack roll or the critical roll, a friend's failed save, and so on. The reroll, however, may be as bad or worse than the original roll. An unwilling target gets a will save to negate and spell resistance. Uh, it's interesting there that you were talking about changing the past, and the last point in that list there is a little bit more to read, but the last point in that list there really addresses exactly what you were talking about. And it looks like changing the past is restricted to kind of one role. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, something recent anyway.
Great.
You had to open that door, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's not specifically mentioned in all of that text, but that's within the purview.
Yeah, it reminds me of, gosh, was it the Omega 13 device from Galaxy Quest where, you have time to reverse one bad decision?
And
Yeah.
then so
Oh, yeah.
reverse
What
the
is
last
this? Yeah, you can go back in time for how many seconds? I forget. Yeah.
Again, I think at
Oh, it was
13 seconds, like,
second.
very short amount of time. Sorry, Skip.
I thought it was 13 seconds, but I don't.
Yeah.
That movie came out 25 years ago, Skip. Oh, God.
I have not watched that one in a while. I love Galaxy Quest.
Oh, it's so good.
It's
All right, let me
about,
go ahead. Sorry.
about 2 rounds. In third edition, that's about 2 rounds, by the way. 6 second. So you go back 2 rounds.
You may wish for greater effects than these, but doing so is dangerous. Such a wish gives you the opportunity to fulfill your request without fulfilling it completely. The wish may pervert your intent into a literal but undesirable fulfillment or only a partial fulfillment. For example, wishing for a staff of the Magi might get you instantly transported to the presence of the staff's current owner. Wishing to be immortal could get you imprisoned in a hidden extra-dimensional space, as in imprisonment, where you could live, which is in quotation marks, indefinitely. Duplicated spells allow saves and spell resistance as normal, but save DCs are for 9th level spells. When a wish duplicates a spell that has an XP cost, you must pay 5,000 XP or that cost, whichever is more. When a wish duplicates a spell with a material component that costs more than 10,000 gold pieces, you must provide that component. XP cost 5,000 XP or more, see above.
So you can wish for things that aren't on that list, but then you get your monkey's paw effects potentially. So all of those things that you just rattled off, those are all safe.
So this is a list of things that you can safely do, and things outside that you're empowering the DM to kind of make a decision right there.
Yep, that's pretty good summation.
So, like, again, my friend who wished for the dungeon to be destroyed at the end of the session, I'm like, oh, that's a very appropriate use of wish. Even though it's not on the list, I'd probably let him get away with it because it was dramatically appropriate. The evening's over anyway, and it's not hurting anybody. But if he was like, I wish to be God, then I could, figure something out to punish him with in a monkey's paw sort of way. I remember very vividly having wish explained to me when I was like 12 years old. My friends who introduced me to second edition AD&D were like, and there's a wish spell where you can wish for anything you want. And it was really put front and center as a cool thing about D&D. And it certainly did fire the imagination. And it's interesting to me that even on TikTok, apparently, that they're still to this day. I mean, Skip, you go back to the very beginnings of D&D. I remember you writing about, being a kid at one of the first Gen Cons. I mean, how old were you when you first discovered D&D?
14.
14. Can I ask dare I ask what year that might have been?
Oh God, you want me to do math right now?
You can lie and I'll never know.
It was 1974, so it was the fall of 1974. So it's just starting high school.
Wow. So you're year one. You got in early. So
Yeah, the game was commercially released in January of 74.
so you were one of the people who saw the first peak of D&D in the early 80s and its current peak. And do you have any impressions about that? Like, because again, I got into it in 1989. So to me, it looked like D&D was kind of on a long slide until about 2014, when even I was like, it seems like things are picking up. And again, I'm talking irrespective of quality of editions or products, because again, like my favorite products were made in that era. But even I could just tell, like, there were less people at Gen Con. It seemed like there were less people playing the game, and then all of a sudden, in the last 10 years, boom, it's more relevant than rock and roll. Do you have any impressions about its popularity or the way its popularity contrasts with the way it was in the past?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can't discount the simple fact that you have a generation of creatives that grew up with the game who are now out creating their own stuff. And this we've talked about before, right? I mean, so when you have things like Stranger Things or you have various fantasy authors referencing the game, what is it? Who is it? Can't remember the name. The Chicago-based wizard. I can't remember. Can't.
Oh, Harry Dresden.
Harry Dresden plays D&D, right?
I mean, and there's a whole episode about D&D on Community. Um,
Yeah.
however
So I mean,
controversial that one is. And then there's an episode of iZombie that has a D&D person too.
Really? I didn't know that. I gotta look that up.
Do you know the show iZombie?
I do not.
The basic premise is that the woman who's the lead is a zombie, but when she eats someone's brains, she has like their memories. And so she helps solve murders by eating the brains of murder victims. And one of the murder victims was a dungeon master. And so she plays a campaign with some of her friends, and it's actually pretty good.
sounds pretty wild.
Huh. So
I mean, if you
so
talk about D&D anyway, as its emergence as a cultural phenomenon, I think that's pretty much it.
so you think it's because the people that were uh acculturated to D&D have now become creatives themselves. They made art that makes D&D look cool, therefore people kind of came to the game.
Yeah, I think it's the power of the network, right? It's all these other people with all these big megaphones.
That's a really good answer. Um, and again, I certainly think it helps that I think fifth edition was a very good edition, and it was there for people to play when they were kind of going and picking up the starter set. But it certainly just seemed to be a cultural moment even beyond that. Um, so, Skip, any times that you used Wish in a campaign or adventure, or had it inflicted on you by a random table that really stick with you?
No, not particularly. I don't actually recall doing a whole lot of wishing. I had played in one campaign where the wishes kind of flowed like water, but the rule there was always a word limit. You could ask whatever you
Ah,
wanted, but you had to do it in 10 words or less, or sometimes had to do it in 5 words or less. That's the campaign I remember that had the most wishing being done. Otherwise, I don't think I've actually ever used it in any other campaign except that one myself. So there was a wish ring with the playtest party for the D series. And our group wound up using that to get around the frickin' vampire, if you remember.
What was the
That
D series again?
was the Descent of the Depths of the Earth. So the second one was the Koatoa City, and we couldn't get through the Koatoa City, and we tried to go around, and then that's the vampire clay rattle. If you recall. We
So
couldn't sneak through the Koatoa city, and we couldn't, and the vampire did bad things with us, so we got rid of the vampire by wishing it away.
So, Eliza, have you ever had or used a wish in any game?
I actually haven't. So this is kind of cool to hear about it because I mean, yeah, it is kind of a thing that you think of when you think fantasy. You think of being able to cast a spell and make it the way you want. I mean, even Harry Potter magic has some sort of semblance of that. Like if you know the right spell, you can get pretty much whatever you want. They've got time travel, got memory spells. But no, I'd never played it in D&D before. I mainly do a lot more confrontational combat spells, which is why my favorites are Fireball and Mage Hand.
Yeah, as a DM, again, I haven't run or played a ton of D&D. But when I have, I've always been like, oh, that just seems like a kind of dangerous third rail. A lot of power to give the players, and I've just never felt like I shouldn't say I never felt like. And I do a lot of random rolling on treasure tables, and nothing has ever brought me to a magical item that had wish in it until I was running that Shadowdark game, and then suddenly there it was in front of me, and I'm like, this is it, it was undeniable the way everyone at the table kind of popped up when it was like, oh, you get a wish. Well, what should you do with it? What are you gonna do? You gonna save it and you just like taking out the dungeon and boom, off we went. But it really was an amazing jalapeno on the burrito of the evening that just made everybody perk up and pay attention. That was what was really noteworthy about it for me. All right, Skip, is there anything that people can do to support you, buy your work, get a Patreon going, anything you get royalties for? Should they just come to GaryCon?
Well, yeah, no, I don't have a lot of commercial irons in the gaming fire anymore. So no, I not don't have a Patreon running because I'm too busy doing other things. Um, and and Gary Con, the badges are almost sold out. So come if you like, but if you're going to come,
Make the decision quick.
All right, note to
like
self, buy badge.
less than 125 badges left right now, or something like that. So
Is there any work of yours that you think is your best work, or things that you would point people to that you would want them to keep playing?
well, I mean, I'm still playing 3.5. It's remains my favorite version of the game, in spite of not winning all the arguments back in the design phase. I don't know. I mean, stuff keeps popping up. I mean, I'm active enough on social media, and it's always great to see people go to drive through RPG or someplace and pick up something old. The last two things that came up, one of them was Axe of the Dwarvish Lords, which I think, given the current climate, is quite amazing. And the other one is Rod of Seven Parts. Those are the two mega dungeons I did.
And
But
which
to the
editions were?
Dwarvish Lords, the bad guys are just terrible, terrible racists.
Could you name that Dwarven Forge adventure again?
What? Axe of the Dwarvish Lords.
Axe of the Dwarvish Lords. Okay.
Axe of the Dwarvish Lords is one of the artifacts that goes all the way back to the Eldritch Wizardry softback, right? One of the first artifacts ever introduced to D&D. And that was a second edition adventure.
Second edition adventure. Okay. And Rod of Seven Parts, was that second or third?
Also was a second edition.
Also second edition. Were and
That's a 2-inch, one of those big 2-inch boxes that TSR used to do back in the day.
wow. So we're talking like mid 90s?
Yeah, 94 maybe. I don't know.
94. Okay. And I think I know the smarmy answer you're going to give me to this question, but so why is 3.5 your favorite version of D&D?
Oh, because it lets me tell the stories I want to tell. And the older versions of the game don't do that, and the newer versions of the game don't do it either. So,
And can you give me one design fight that you felt like you didn't win in the 3.0, 3.5 era?
wow, there's just too many. Um, non-damaging hit should have a chance to spoil spells. That was one.
So in other words, if someone hits a wizard but doesn't do any damage, you're like, that should still ruin the spell.
And the same DC as whatever that is, because it's what is it? 10. It's 10 plus the damage dealt, I believe, right? So it's still a DC 10 concentration deck, because if somebody hits you with a pool noodle in the face, it doesn't hurt you, but it certainly screw up your dissertation, right? A lot of it was just minor stuff like that. It's just in the end, it doesn't make a difference.
Were there any design fights you were really happy you won?
Pretty happy about winning the fight, being on the winning side of Wish. I'm pretty happy about keeping Fancy and Magic, because that was on the chopping block at one time.
So what were you guys? And that's the Fire and Forget magic system, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I think
yes.
that was a yes.
Yes.
And what were you going to do instead? Spell points or something?
Points was the chief contender.
Very cool.
All points can work fine. They just don't work with D&D spells.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so D&D, right? Like that is the way the spells work. You fire, you forget, and it's just that I can't imagine D&D another way. All right. Well, Eliza, anything else you want to say about anything before we outro?
I have only played one campaign of 3.5, and I think we talked about it last time when we were talking about reading aloud a different part of old editions of D&D. But I was saying I really enjoyed the 3.5 because of the layout with the skills and the specialties, and not just your straight character building skills, but that you could specialize in very specific types of dexterity or types of strength. Feats. Loved it. I want to play another game of 3.5 if you ever want to DM it again, Ben.
Hey, ask Skip. Apparently, it's all he wants to run, and he's in Wisconsin. So, Skip,
Well,
the next time you have a
hey.
campaign, just call Eliza.
I play on my own, so
There we go.
Thursday afternoon.
Every Thursday
Excuse me, every other Thursday afternoon I play online.
Huh. Dare I ask who you're playing with, or is it just people on the internet?
It's people I'm friended with on Facebook mostly.
Huh. Super cool. All right, then I will outro by saying, hey, we have a Patreon. I am trying to set up the Patreon so that for $3 a month, you get a lot of awesome stuff. And I'm gonna, I think, keep it to a single Patreon tier where if you are a Patreon subscriber, you kind of get everything in the hopes that you get such a good deal at $3 a month that all of you decide that you have to become subscribers. On that note, we have a Discord that you get access to if you subscribe to our Patreon. You get access to bonus episodes, such as Dr. Scott Bruner and I reading the Dungeon Master's Guide aloud. I post seminars that I do at conventions on the Patreon feed. I'm going to be posting bits and pieces of my second book on the Patreon feed. So if you're interested in those things, please go forth and give us $3 a month. It's like the price of a cup of coffee. Come on, help keep the lights on here, folks. So with that, I want to say, since we're recording 2 days after Thanksgiving, Eliza, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And Skip, happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.